So are we missing a few or?
One, I think.
Okay.
Kimpy.
Right.
Or is there more?
Andrew Nichols.
Oh, Andrew. Yes,
Nichols.
Andrew.
Yeah, Andrew.
Yeah.
Yeah, Andrew and Kimpy. Sure.
Okay.
Two more.
Very good.
Hello, Andrew.
Hi, Andrew.
Hello.
All right. Well, welcome to this evening's class, and glad that I'm able to be here and you're able to be here. So this is going to be a learning experience. This is my first time teaching a class at Calvary. I've been mainly a dissertation supervisor for Eduardo Perez, Chris Johnson, and now Jacob Reinhart. And but this is my first teaching class, so looking forward to it. And I feel like I'm a substitute teacher, even though I'm not really a substitute teacher, but we'll have to learn the ropes together and figure out what the protocol is. I've gotten messages from Dr. Gromacki, but not necessarily clear instructions on exactly how it goes. So we'll figure it out together. But let me open us in prayer. I'll introduce myself a little more formally, and then have you introduce yourselves so we can get to know each other a little bit better. Then we'll outline what we want to try to do tonight and how the class will look. And you all can give me some feedback on some of those things, okay? All right, so let me open us in prayer. Father, we're grateful that we can meet together. I thank you for these men and their dedication and diligence in serving your church and in knowing your word. And so we pray that you would grant us understanding and grace, that we would be faithful servants as we seek to understand your word better, to live it out and apply it. I pray that you would help us as we lead our families and lead ministries and are involved in our other work as well, just that you'd give us grace to balance the demands upon our schedules. And I pray that this would be glorifying to you as we seek to honor Christ above all else. We pray all this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Okay,
Amen.
so I'll just say a little bit more about myself, and then kind of we can go around and introduce ourselves. It sounds like you all probably know each other to some degree, I think, but for my purposes, this will help me. All right, I am in Detroit, Michigan. I teach at Detroit Baptist Theological Seminary full-time. This is my 10th year there. Before that, I was 5 years in Virginia Beach. I've been associated at Virginia Beach Theological Seminary. I've been associated with Calvary since 2023, I believe. So it's been a few years. I've been married to my wife for 27 years. We have 2 adult daughters. And I also interim pastor a church in Toledo, Ohio right now, and teach at the seminary and have a lot of writing projects that I'm working on at different times. My specialty is in the wisdom books primarily. I did my dissertation on Job. I've written several journal articles on Psalms. I've been working on a 10-year project on Ecclesiastes that's going to be published, Lord willing, with Baker later this year. And then I've written a commentary that's also in the pipeline with Kirux and Kregel Academic on Proverbs. So hopefully that will be later this year or next year. So that's kind of my background a little bit. So yeah, trying to think. I think those are the main things. So let's start with you, and you can introduce yourself. I'll start with Steve and kind of work my way around.
Oh, thank you. I'm Steve Price. I'm in Kansas City, where Chris and Paul are at, and I've been married to my wife for over 40 years. We have 9 children and soon to be 11 grandchildren. I am an emergency room physician, and I left that full-time practice about 9 years ago to serve the Lord with more of my energies and time. And currently, I was just in Peru doing a medical missions trip, and that's what I was talking about earlier. But there are a host of other ministries, and mostly itinerant speaking, as well as discipleship programs that are within the circles that I travel. And I think that's roughly about it. But thank you.
Am I the next one? I don't know how it's in the screen there.
Yeah, let's go to Chris next.
All right. I'm also in Kansas City, Missouri. I've been to Calvary. I went to Calvary in the 80s, in the 2000s, in the 2010s, and now the 2020s. Love the school. My wife and I have been married 14 years. We got 4 kids. I don't work full-time Christian service at this point. Right now, I work in a data center, managing the federal DoD and the VA medical health records. And I'm looking forward to when God changes my direction. And I thought he would have done that by now, but I'm trying to be patient, waiting for him. And I have absolutely, totally enjoyed Calvary, especially at this level. It pushes you farther than you think you can go, and harder than you think you can, drive. And it's just absolutely awesome. So glad to be here.
All right, very good. All right, good to know you. How about Michael?
Thank you. My name is Michael Malema. I'm from Uganda, East Africa. I'm a pastor for the last 19 years, married for the last 18 years. 2 kids and an extended family. Still enjoying Calvary University and learning more. Nice to be here. Thank you so much.
Which part of Uganda are you in, Michael?
Central Uganda.
Okay. Yeah, I've been out for the last 2 years to teach at Shepherd's Training College, and if you know where that is, Luero.
Oh, Luero. Luero
Yeah.
is a few kilometers from where I am. That was
Okay.
nice.
Okay, very good. Yeah, I know Shannon Hurley and Dan Huffstetler, and I've been teaching their pastors college there for a couple years. So nice to meet you.
Wow, nice to meet you again.
All right, Ronald.
Hi, I'm over on the eastern side of Missouri. I went to Calvary first to work on my master's degree, and now I'm back for this. It's very exciting to be involved. I serve in my church, Hope Bible Church in O'Fallon, Missouri, with being on the deacon board and teaching Sunday school and Wednesday night teaching, and once in a while Sunday morning. And I also am the executive director of a ministry that's based in Warrenton, Missouri. It's called Righteous Rides. Nothing to do with motorcycles or horses. We provide vehicles for missionaries when they're home on furlough. And prior to that, I was served with Child Evangelism Fellowship for 24 years.
All right, great. So looks like a few here in Missouri, so that's good. Let's go to let's see, Paul next.
Yes. Yes, my name is Paul Bor, and I am originally from Kenya, East Africa.
Okay.
Where I have my mother, 2 brothers, and 2 sisters. And I have a sister here in Missouri. And currently, my family and I live in Grandview, Missouri. In ministry, I serve as hospice chaplain at a hospice, and so I'm enjoying that ministry. It is hard sometimes, but I'm enjoying the ministry. It is rewarding, and I'm glad to be in this class.
All right, very good. Welcome.
Thank you.
Britton. Is that how you
Hi.
pronounce
Yes,
it?
yes,
Okay.
Britain, just like the country. How you doing?
Okay. Doing well.
I've been married to my lovely wife for 15 years now. Tried for children, prayed about it, did all kinds of stuff. The Lord hasn't blessed us with children, so that's that. Just fairly recently took up pastorship in Lakewood, Washington, but I'm still doing a satellite church in Norco, and actually I'm in Norco right now. So I'm teaching and preaching at both churches. And it's been quite a blessing to do that. I got out of hospitality and I was bivocational then, but that was full time for sure, and able to serve the Lord full time with this. So that is the definite blessing. And I just love being here at Calvary and learning and growing and maturing in the Lord and able to teach better and be a better pastor and leader.
That's great. All right. Very good. So West Coast.
I'm sorry,
state
yeah,
of
West Coast, but either
Okay.
Washington State or Southern California. Norco is Riverside, Inland Empire.
Yeah. Okay. Right. I did my doctorate at Masters, which is
I audited
San Fernando
classes
Valley,
there.
and
Yeah, I audited there. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we lived up in Santa Clarita, so I
Oh,
don't
I
know.
lived there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yep. Know that area pretty well. So.
Yep.
Very good. All right. Kelso.
Hello. Well, my name is Kelso, as I said. I'm from Brazil. I live in Fortaleza. Fortaleza is my city here in the northeast Brazil. Actually, Dr. Granados was here in my city, and he preached in the seminary where I teach here. And well, I took my master's in Central Baptist Seminary in Plymouth, Minnesota, and I am a missionary with BGFM, Brazil Gospel Fellowship Mission. And my focus is in teaching and preaching. And I teach in the seminary here, as I said. I'm dean of students there. And I'm married, my wife Karen, or Karen. And for 25 years, we have a daughter, 19 years old daughter.
Okay, great. What time zone are you in? Is it what time
Now
is it there?
Yeah, it's 9:11 now, 3 hours in advance from there. So
Okay.
we'll finish at midnight for us.
Okay.
This class tonight.
All right. All right. Well, glad to have you. My wife lived in Brazil for a year. She was teaching missionary kids at a school, and it may have been in Fortaleza. I'll have to ask her to confirm that and see if there's some connection there. But
oh yeah, please.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good.
Good to get to know you. All right, Andrew.
Thank you.
Well, my name is Andrew. Most folks call me AJ, though. I live in kind of northeast Georgia, so if you think where the Appalachian Mountains come down to the state, that's where I'm at. God has opened up the opportunity to just within the past year to be able to pastor a small church in the area. I'm so grateful. It's bivocational, but realizing how much I had to learn. Also have a chance to help out at the school where I graduated from, Truett McConnell University, and I assist a couple professors there. And I have to agree with Chris. I've really enjoyed the program here at Calvary. It's been good. It's pushed me hard, and I've learned so much from it. So just grateful to the Lord for the opportunity.
Excellent. All right, very good. All right, and then Bang Kim.
Yeah, Tang Kim. You can call me Kimpy. That's how I usually go by, Kimpy. Yeah, so I'm from Burma, Myanmar, Southeast Asia. Glad to be here. I'm married. I have with 2 kids. Serving the Lord at a seminary here and a Bible college, and also working in church planting ministry for the past about 8 years now since I've been back from the States. So yeah, that's what I'm up to. I'm enjoying my classes here, and Lord willing, I'll get to know each of you more as we go throughout this class as well. Thank you.
So did you come to the States for your training, or?
I did
Okay.
For my undergrad and my MDiv at BBS.
Okay, great. Very good. All right, well, welcome, gentlemen. I'm glad to get to know you a little bit and looking forward to this class. And I hope it's a profitable one for each of us. So as I said, I'm relatively new to this, so I've been looking over the syllabus and some other things, just trying to get a sense and a grasp for the course plan and outline and all that sort of thing. So you'll have to help me a little bit as I'm figuring that part out. But it looks like tonight covering Joshua and Judges, then we do 1st and 2nd Samuel, 1st and 2nd Kings, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, the 12, and then week 8 will be student paper presentation. So, so that's good. Let me just ask in terms of how the flow of these classes typically proceed. Is this usually Dr. Gramacki that's teaching, and does he, is there a translation portion that is done normally and then going through your assignments, or what's the typical protocol? Anybody can tell me if you can.
So one of Dr. Gramacki's main emphasis is getting us into the original language. And so he takes a fair amount of time, or he suggests you take a fair amount of time with us in the original language and maybe share some of the insights that you have in that.
Okay. And is there a prescribed passage each week? Because I'm not seeing it on the.
That'd be your choice.
Oh, I see. Okay, so it's anywhere in Joshua. Anywhere in Joshua or Judges? Is that?
Whatever you choose, you get a head start on studying it, and then we try to read maybe alternating verses or something. We take turns or something, but it's however you want us to best try to get the Hebrew language.
Okay.
And then there's some time for presentation, your presentation to us about whatever the subject is, and
okay.
It's just pouring your life into our lives, so that we can pour our lives into someone else.
Terrific. All right.
Well said, Chris.
Sometimes there will be some discussion of the reading. Not a lot, but sometimes we'll refer to that.
Okay. All right. Okay, so the way that it was explained to me as well is that the class goes for 3 hours. Is that correct? Okay. Mm-hmm. And I generally like to take breaks about every hour when I'm teaching, so that's kind of how I'd prefer to do it.
He does it.
Okay, he does as well. All right. So then if we were to take the first segment of class and start maybe looking at a passage in the Hebrew Bible, then I can share some material I have on Joshua and Judges, and then maybe discuss our reading. And were you to do a review of the Kostenberger Goswell volume for today? Is that what the assignment was, or?
We were
David
supposed
Dorsey.
to have one.
David Dorsey. Okay.
Yeah, David Dorsey is supposed to turn that into the assignments.
Yesterday.
Yeah, yesterday.
Okay. So I mistook the assignments because I was looking at assignment 2. Oh, but that's for next week. I see. Okay. Today is assignment 1.
I think
Gotcha.
the second assignment is 2 weeks from now, isn't it?
February 3rd.
Yeah.
Okay.
2 weeks.
Okay, so for today it was Dorsey, the literary structure. Okay. All right. Well, we can discuss that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
I'm sorry. The next assignment, I believe, is Kostenberger.
Right. Okay. All right. Very good. Okay. That sounds
Dr.
good.
Dunham?
Yeah.
And can you comment on assignment 6 and assignment 7? Because I know it was copied over from the Torah, what we did the previous, and I'm convinced we're not going to do more, papers for you from the Torah. I'm assuming we're going to put the prophets in here. Do you have any comments you'd like to make for assignment 6 and assignment 7?
Okay. Well, we'll probably choose a passage from the prophets. So that's, let's see. Do they say the same thing? I'm clicking on both here.
I think Chris is right.
One
it
is
looks
a
like they were
paper.
copied over. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. That sounds good. So this class goes through the middle of March. Is that the cycle?
Sounds right.
Okay. All right. All right. Very good. So 8 weeks. Okay. Yeah, we'll probably do, I need to give that some more thought, because I haven't really come up with that, but in my mind, I'm thinking, probably have you choose a passage from, you know, some of the interpretive issues in these books, just off the top of my head, thinking about the messianic prophecy in Isaiah 1, you know, what is that talking about? The nature of the new covenant in Jeremiah 31, a passage dealing with millennial sacrifices in Ezekiel, and on down. So maybe let me give some thought to that, and I can probably come up in the next week or so with some potential passages to choose for that. Okay.
So for week 4 or assignment 4, we're going to do an exegetical outline of either Isaiah, Jeremiah, or Ezekiel, and we just choose one. You're not going to assign it, so we can just pick one of them. Okay. And then on assignment 5, there's a half a dozen or so major passages. Or is it just we pick which one we want, or do we have to each pick maybe a different one?
So we have 6 here. Yeah, it would be good to have probably different passages, but we have more students than there are passages, so probably just picking one would be fine.
Okay. And for the teaching, what we did last time is we picked a short passage, maybe 5 or so verses, and we taught it in Hebrew, or from the Hebrew, not in Hebrew. Is that what your thought is for the teaching of in the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, that would work well.
Thank you,
All
sir.
right. Yeah, no problem. All right, well, let's spend some time then in the Hebrew text. This is going to be off the cuff for me because I wasn't sure if there was an assigned passage. I couldn't find that there was, but let's just go to the opening part of Joshua and make an attempt for that. It's probably a little bit easier Hebrew. I'm the church that I'm interim pastoring at right now. I'm preaching through Joshua. So I just got through Joshua 10 this past Sunday, dealing with the chapter where the sun stands still and then the hanging of the 5 kings. So my mind's been in Joshua these past few months, so this would probably be a good place to start.
Joshua 10, that key verse, huh? Where the sun stands still? Yeah.
Yeah, you know that one?
Well,
I mean,
yes, yeah, sorry. It's come up. People have asked me about it before, and if we touch on it, it'd be great. I'd like some more thoughts on it.
Okay. I mean, we could do that if you'd
Not,
rather
no,
do that
if
chapter.
we get there. If we get there, we don't have to do this today.
Okay.
I'm just saying.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, well, let's just start with the intro. That might be helpful. Does he usually have you take turns reading the Hebrew text, or?
Yeah, we usually alternate, read a verse, and we kind of read like grade schoolers, except for Andrew.
Okay. All right. Well, let's take a stab at it then. So Joshua 1:1. Steve, do you want to tackle that first verse? And
I'll do my best, but it'll sound like a kindergartner. Okay. Lahai ahare mot mose eved Adonai Vayomer Adonai El Yehoshu El Yehoshu.
Yeah, it's Yehoshua. Yeah.
Yeshua. That's it. Yehoshua. I missed that last one. Ben-Nun. Mesharet. Mose Lemor.
Okay, good. Do you try to sight translate it or?
We'll try our best. And let's see. And it was after the death of Moses. It was after the death of Moses, the servant of Adonai, or the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
And the Lord or Adonai said to Joshua, the son Ben Nun, son of Nun. I'm not sure that word. The servant, the assistant, maybe the assistant.
Yep.
Of the assistant of Moses said to him,
Yep. Saying or said. Yep.
Saying.
Very good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Very good. So let's just talk about a few things here. So it's set after the death of Moses. This connects us, of course, back to Deuteronomy 34, where we see the death of Moses recorded. And in the epilogue to Deuteronomy there, verses 9 to 12, it tells us that Joshua the son of Nun was full of the spirit of wisdom, for Moses laid his hands upon him, and they listened to him, the sons of Israel, and they did just as Yahweh commanded Moses. So Joshua is elevated here. Moses lays his hand on him. In Numbers 25, Numbers 11, when that happens, the elders prophesy. So there's sort of like the spirit of prophecy that's coming on to Joshua. He's characterized as being full of wisdom. And this book opens with Moses' death. Now, I always like to draw a comparison to the opening of Joshua and the opening of Judges. In the opening of Judges, it takes place after the death of Joshua. This takes place after the death of Moses. And in Joshua, Moses dies and God immediately speaks to Joshua, telling him what to do. In Judges, Joshua dies and the people sort of ask, what do we do now? There's a sense of a vacuum of leadership. There's a challenge as to who will go up. There's a seeming chaos and uncertainty about the future. But here it's very clear that Moses has died and now that Joshua is his successor. So Joshua is to take the role that Moses has. And as I've worked through the book of Joshua, I think in nearly every chapter, Joshua does something that is Mosaic-like, that's intended to show that Joshua is Moses' successor, whether it be holding up a javelin as they're fighting Ai, which is similar to Moses holding up his staff when they're fighting the Amalekites. He follows carefully the covenant renewal ceremony that Moses told them to do when they have this antiphonal recitation of the blessings and the curses on Ebal and Gerizim. He's very careful to do exactly what Moses says. He meets an angel with an outstretched sword and is commanded to take off his shoes. He and Moses are the only ones in the Old Testament that are commanded to take off their shoes, even though we infer that the priests probably served without wearing shoes because there's no shoes included in the attire of the priests in the Torah. So many infer by that they worship or they serve the Lord without shoes on because they're in holy ground in the temple sanctuary. But at any rate, here Moses has died, and so he's the servant of the Lord. There's an important contrast here between Moses is the Eved Adonai, he's the servant of Yahweh, which he really didn't attain until the end of his life, and Joshua is the Mesharet Moshe, he's the assistant of Moses. Joshua won't himself be called the servant of Yahweh until the end of the book, so he's got to grow into that role. So he starts off as Moses' servant, he'll end as Yahweh's servant. He's to be seen as the successor to Moses and as a prophet like Moses, although no prophet is quite as Moses, as Deuteronomy 34 says. So there's a lot packed into this verse in terms of what's going on and the Lord's command. I also see the opening of Joshua, since it's a new part of the canon in the Hebrew Bible. I've been influenced by Sailhammer to see this, but at the end of each section and the beginning of the next section in the Old Testament, so I'm thinking of the end of Deuteronomy, the beginning of Joshua, then the end of Malachi and the beginning of Psalms, there's a short introduction that interweaves the three major offices and the three major components of the canon. So within the end of Deuteronomy, you have a reference to law, prophecy, and wisdom. And then in the opening of Joshua, we're also going to see references, veiled references to wisdom, to the law, and toward an eschatological or prophetic orientation. So we see that unfolding. All right, does that make sense? Questions on any of that? I was giving you a lot of info there, but okay. Chris, you want to tackle verse 2?
Sure, verse 2. Moshe Avdi Eighth Va'ata Kum Avor Eighth Hayareden Hazeh Etah Vekol Ha'am Hazeh El Haaretz Esher Anoki Nothane Ahim, or no, I'm sorry, Lahim, Leave me, Yisrael.
Okay, good.
Probably laughing. You want me to try to translate it without looking at the words that are right above the screen?
I mean, yeah, whatever you got. I have a
I'll
reader's,
try.
but yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so so Moses, Moshe, Evri, or
FD.
Evdi, my servant, a servant of mine, Eighth, or Maith.
Yeah.
Maith. Okay, dead. Okay, so
Dead.
Moses is dead. Va'atah. So now at this place, or and now, Kum, rise, Avor, ever. I'm gonna look. Okay, cross. Eighth. Hara. Dane. Or Dane.
Yep. Yardain, which is the Jordan.
Dane. Okay, the Jordan. So cross the Jordan. Hazeh. This. This. Etah. You. The Kol all. People. Hazeh. The this. Ale to. Eretz to the land. Asher. That. Anoki I. No thane. Probably give, or some form of give.
Yeah, it's a participial form, so am giving.
Okay, and giving. Lahem to you.
To them.
Okay, to them. Thank you. To them. To them. Leave. Nay. Leave nay. To their sons, to the sons,
Mhm.
to the sons, Israel, to the sons of Israel.
Okay, good. All right, thank you. All right, so God is speaking now. He's talking to Joshua. He says, Moses, my servant, is dead. Now, therefore, arise and cross over. So we're going to see this word aver, to cross over. That's, of course, a word prominent in the Passover passage, to pass over the houses with the blood stains. And that word will be used something like 14 times, I think, in chapter 3, where they're crossing over the Jordan. So that's going to be a prominent part of the initial phase of the campaign. We're supposed to, I think, see the crossing of the Jordan in the same terms as we saw the crossing of the Red Sea. That is, God is doing a miracle in both cases. He's legitimizing Joshua just as he legitimized Moses through the crossing. One thing I've noticed that's really interesting in the book of Joshua is how often things are framed in as 7 days. So, for instance, in the crossing of the Jordan account, if you follow closely the details of the passage, they cross on the 7th day, which I think has implications for the fact that Joshua's to bring them into the land with rest. I think the Sabbath day is the day that God, as when he's resting, takes the throne of the created order as king. So the fact that they cross on the 7th day would signify that Yahweh is taking his throne in his rightful place in the land, and he's going to provide rest to his people. So that's the 7th day. Other examples would be when they confront the Gibeons, and the Gibeonite sequence is 7 days, and then in Joshua 10, the southern campaign is stylized as taking place in 7 days. I'm not sure that it actually was 7 absolute days, but it's sort of stylized that way because one of the cities takes 2 days and so on. And so 7 days for that, 7 cities and 10 kings. So all that to say, I think that's a prominent theme here. So they're about to cross, Joshua is, and the people into the land he's giving them. This, of course, means it's an activation of Yahweh's promises to the patriarchs. And so we'll see that take place as it goes forward. All right, Paul, do you want to try verse 3 for us? You're muted, Paul. I don't know if you're talking, but
Sorry, I was muted.
yeah.
Okay, verse 3.
Yes.
Call Macomb, Asher did rock, Calf, Ragle, Kem,
Mhm.
Bo, La Kem, Neta, T, Ka Asher, Dibar, T,
Mm.
El, Moshe.
Good.
Okay, so each place or every place,
Mm-hmm.
the sole of your foot shall touch
Yep.
on. I have given it to you
Mm-hmm.
as I spoke to Moses.
Okay, good. Very good. All right. So this is, I think this has echoes going all the way back to Genesis 15 and other places when God says to Abraham to walk the breadth and length of the land, and wherever the sole of your foot touches, I am giving it to you. So walking on land was a symbol of ownership. In Abraham's case, proleptically, When the Satan appears before God in the divine council in Job, he comes from walking to and fro on the earth as if to say, that's his terrain. So here, Joshua, wherever he walks, is signaling that this is God's land and it's going to be set apart for God, sanctified for God's habitation, which is part of the process of devoting certain cities to destruction, whereby they burn them with fire, because that is to purify those habitations for the Lord's dwelling. So that's to continue. All right. Kimpi, is that right? Is that how I say your name? Could
Yeah.
you do verse 4 for us?
Yeah. Mehamebar Vahalavonon Hazeh Vaed Hanahar Hagodol Nehar Paret Call Eretz Hahetim Vaed Hayam Hagodol Mevo Hashamish Yet Gavulakim.
Good.
From the wilderness and I'm not sure of that word.
Lebanon, that one?
Oh, Lebanon. Okay.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Yeah, so from the wilderness and Lebanon, this
Lebanon.
Vayet. Thus, is it thus? No.
Yeah, and unto.
And onto the river.
Yep.
Great. River again.
Yep.
Paret.
Yep. Euphrates, right?
Oh, okay. Euphrates. Call all the land. Hahitim. I think that's another name.
Yeah, the Hittites, or they might be the Hethites, but probably an ethnic designation. Yeah.
And to Sea, the Great Sea.
Mm-hmm.
Mabo.
Yep, that's from the word bow, or
down,
and it's the going down. Yep, setting
down, right down. Okay, going down of the sun.
Okay. Good.
Your will be your territory.
Okay. Yes, very good. Okay, thank you. So the dimensions here of the land are given, and sort of broad brush strokes. Again, this recalls the opening of Deuteronomy, where the territory is designated. In other places, the territory is mentioned in Numbers, also mentioned in Genesis. And so here, the dimensions are given in terms of the northeast, northwest, southwest, southeast corners. It's sort of how the dimensions go here. So up to the great river Euphrates, the land of the Hethites or Hittites, which goes east, depending on which people group. Andrew Steinman makes a case we should read these as Hethites rather than Hittites, so that it's probably a people group that were at the northwest corner. And then the Great Sea, which of course would be the Mediterranean Sea where the sun goes down. This will be your territory. So in broad brush strokes, he's essentially designating what the land territory will be, connected to the fact that he's going to walk and traverse this land. And that will be his way of designating it for the nation of Israel. All right, let's keep pressing here and go to Kelso next. Do you want to try verse 5, Kelso?
Yeah. Can I be helped by English if I don't
Yes.
find out the meaning? Oh, okay. I'll try Hebrew if I don't get. Anyway,
Okay.
let's see. Fifth, right? Lo it yatzev ish lefaneicha kol yamei hayeicha ka'asher hayiti im Moshe eheye amad mach, sorry, lo arpecha velo oops, sorry, veha.
Okay, good.
Right. Well, let's see here. Nobody will stand, no man will stand before you, lefaneicha,
Yes.
all days hayeicha, that you live, right?
Yeah, of your life. Yep.
Kasher, which, let me check here. That Haiti in Moshe, I think something that, what's Haiti to?
I was.
I was, sorry. In Moshe, if Moses was, right?
Yes, just as I was with Moses.
Oh, okay, I was with Moses. Let's see here. With you, no, Arbacha. I won't leave you.
Right.
Arbecha, Velo, and I won't forsake you.
Very good. Okay, right. Okay, so the Lord makes grand promises here to Joshua that no one is going to be able to stand against him. So this essentially, we'll see this in later chapters, but the Lord goes to battle for Israel. I really take this to be principally the angel of the Lord who is promised to go before them in the Torah. And so when it says in Exodus 15 that Yahweh is a man of war, I think that's principally the angel of the Lord who's going into battle, which I see as a pre-incarnate Christ. So he leads them into battle just like he'll lead us into battle in the book of Revelation. So he's a divine warrior. So no one's going to be able to stand. And he promises here he's going to be with Joshua just as he was with Moses. He will never leave him nor forsake him, which gets repeated several times in the book. It gets emphasized again in verse 9. But the Lord is essentially, this isn't necessarily a text about omnipresence, because of course the Lord is everywhere, but it's really a verse about empowerment. I think Joshua is to be seen as the theocratically anointed leader. And what I mean by that is I take it that the leader of the theocracy was empowered by God for the task. And so Joshua is going to be theocratically empowered to lead the nation of Israel, even as many of the judges are, even though they're not always godly examples, they're empowered by the Spirit because they're put in a position of leadership within the theocracy. So Joshua is going to be empowered in this way. God will be with him in a special way to enable him and to bless him as he leads. So then he continues with the promises in verse 6. Britton, do you want to try for verse 6 for us?
Sure. Quick question. just a thought. In verse 4, when it talks about the river to the sea as a promise for Israel, it almost seems like the enemy adopted that saying recently to attack the Israelites against the promise of God. Would you think that that's probably correct? I mean, it feels that that's where they got it from
Oh,
the
yeah.
enemy. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, I think that's the case. They're trying to reverse a biblical catchphrase to describe Israel's guarantee of the land to say we're going to eradicate you or sweep you from the rivers of the
Right.
sea. Yeah.
Yeah.
Two
yeah.
different rivers. It's two different rivers.
Right. Yeah, I just mean the phraseology.
Yeah.
Okay, let me do my best here. Hazag va'amas ki ata tanhel et ham haza et haaretz aser misbati la botam
Mhm.
latet chlahem.
Good.
Hazag strength.
Yep.
So I'm trying to develop the sentence in my head. Strong, so it's strong. Little cheat there of boldness. Be strong, be bold.
Yeah, it's often like be strong and courageous, but it's sort of synonymous, like to be strong and to be, bold, as you say, works.
So I'm like be strong in strength, kind of.
Right. Yep.
Okay. Key 4. Ata here would be you guys or all of you. Tanhil, possess.
Yeah, so this is from Nachal to inherit or possess. So this is the Hifil form. So it's sort of you will cause this people to inherit or bequeath it or deliver it as an inheritance to this people is kind of the sense of it. Yeah.
So be strong, courageous. You will cause an inheritance.
Right.
At Hayam for the people. Hazah, this direct object of the land. Haaretz,
Yes.
the land. Aser, which mispita, I know this. Take the oath.
Yes,
oath,
swear.
to give an oath.
Swore. Mhm.
Okay, this one I'm gonna have to see.
To their fathers.
To their fathers, thank you. Unto them.
Yep. Latet is from Natan, the infinitive there to give to them.
Okay, thanks, to give.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, very good. Michael, verse 7.
Verse 7. Rak Zek Vayomat Mayod Lishmor Layeshut Kakal Hatura Asher Sukkah.
Okay.
Moshe Abdi Al Tashur Mimno Yamir Ushmor.
Yes.
Laman Tashkil Vakol Asher Talek.
Good.
Only be strong and courageous, and be careful to do all the instruction which I commanded Moses, my servant.
Yeah, so that would probably be which Moses, my servant, commanded you.
Or which my servant commanded you, and do not turn aside, namely from do not turn aside from it to the left side or right side.
Right.
The man, so that you may prosper to kill all the lake.
Yep. That's from halak, to go. So wherever you go, wherever you walk.
Wherever you go.
Yeah.
That you may prosper wherever you go.
Yep. Wherever you go, in every place where you go. All right. Very good. So repetition here of the commands from the imperatives from verse 6. Again, chazak va'amatz. So be strong and courageous exceedingly, me'od. To keep, to do, so to be careful to do according to all the Torah. So here again, Joshua as Moses' successor, he's a prophetic figure, but he's to carefully obey the Torah and not turn aside to the left or right. So there's a combination here of wisdom terms. This word sakel, or the form here is taskil. You shall have success or you shall prosper. That's a word that's common in the book of Proverbs, for instance, everywhere you go. So Proverbs emphasizes the two paths, and so he's telling Joshua to stick to the right path, the path of Torah, which he will fulfill if he is faithful and diligent in obeying the law. I often say it's a bit unusual for a warrior to be told that his success hinges not on developing battle plans, not on providing the right weapons, having good strategy, but it's meditating on Torah, which is a very unusual place for a warrior to begin. But that's what he must do if he's to succeed as God's leader, because it's, again, not just any nation, but it's God's people, and the Torah is supreme in terms of their obedience. All right, AJ, could you do verse 8 for us?
Could I have a quick question on the end of that when it's Bakal Aser? It's like wherever which it's for emphasis, or is it just the grammatic structure there?
Yeah, so it would be literally in everything which you go. So for smoother English, I would probably render that wherever you go. So the idea is just everywhere you go, wherever you go, you're to be strong and courageous and obeying Torah, because the Torah is really God's guidelines for their existence in the land. Later on, when they have the ceremony on Mount Ebal and Mount Gerizim, they're to write the law, and Moses tells them in Deuteronomy they're to whitewash stones and then to write the law on stones. And what's interesting about that is typically when a king conquers a territory, he would set up an image of himself as a representation of his royal authority and as a reminder to the people. But instead, God sets up the Torah. It's almost like the Torah is the reflection of his character rather than the king. And so that's his monument, if you will, to his authority, that the people are to see the Torah and to obey the Torah.
It's
All
sort
right.
of Proverbs, my word and my name stand together
Yes.
type thing. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. All right.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right. Lo yamush sefer haTorah hazeh mipicha v'hagita bo yomam v'layla lama'an tishmor la'asot Kechol hach. It's a longer one.
Yeah.
Tov. Kechol hakatov. Bo ki az tatsilach et derchecha va'az taschil.
Good.
This is the fun part.
Right.
I did a little reading on this earlier. I think this is this book of the Torah shall not depart from your mouth. And it's like you shall meditate on it day and night in order to be in order that you should be careful to do according to all that is written in it.
Yep.
Because so because then, okay, I think I got it.
Okay.
Just from memory, you will cause to be prosperous or something like
Yeah.
it will cause your way to be prosperous.
Right.
And then you will cause to be successful or something like that.
Yeah, you will have success, or cause to be, have success or prosper. Very good. Okay, so he's not to, the book of the law is not to be removed or depart from his mouth. So sort of understanding that in the ancient world, they probably typically read aloud. So the idea is he's to be constantly reading, chanting, reciting Torah, memorizing Torah. I think all of that is entailed. The king would write himself a copy of the law, and he was to read it every day, meaning reading it aloud. So he was to be reciting it in his mouth, and then meditate on it day and night. This is very similar to Psalm 1. That's another opening portion of a section of the Bible. Psalm 1 opening the writings, the Ketuvim section. So Haggah can mean to murmur, but also to meditate. So again, it's sort of like verbal recitation of the law, meditating. So he's like the blessed man of Psalm 1 who's meditating on Torah day and night in order to carefully keep it. And then he'll be prosperous and successful. Again, using Proverbs kind of language here, that his way will flourish and succeed when he follows Torah. All right, and then the final one. So let's do this last verse, Ron, if you would, and then we'll take a break after that. But verse 9.
All right, verse 9. Hello, Zai, or Zanu, sorry. Ticha.
Yes.
Hetsak. Namats. All ta rotes. All te hot he mach ya na el hich bikol esher tilach.
Okay.
And is it commanded?
Yep.
Or have I not commanded you? is what I remember about. I mean, that's a little bit out of memory. Sorry. And be courageous.
Yep.
Do not be frightened or scared.
Yep.
And do not. Let's see. It's dismayed. Do not be dismayed.
Right.
When or probably
Or
because or for
yeah.
Yahweh or Adonai, I the Lord. Hello. Let's see.
Yeah. So
I guess that's your God. I the Lord your God.
Yep. Yahweh your God is with you. The Lord your God is with you.
Is with you. Yeah. Okay. Wherever you walk or in whichever way you go.
Right. Wherever you go. So.
Yep.
All right, very good. So 9 is kind of the capstone here of the Lord's encouragement to Joshua. So framing it both with the repeated positives. This is the third time now that he's told to be strong and courageous. And he says, have I not commanded you? And then he adds, don't be terrified, don't be dismayed. So really 4 phrases here. The first 2 positively with strength, and the second 2 to negate fear and to be dismayed or shattered means to just sort of have all the life go out of you, to be panic stricken, I guess the idea, because Yahweh is with him wherever he goes. So God's empowering him for the task. So Joshua has all the resources that he needs to succeed, and he's the empowered theocratic leader of the nation. So it is now up to him to be faithful. And for the most part, Joshua is faithful. There are a few missteps along the way. Usually the nation seems to take 2 steps forward and then 1 step backward. They act with faith and with strength, but then something happens. It's a setback. We see this with Ai, where they kind of like begin to trust in their own resources. We see this later with Gibeon, where they don't consult the Lord. So there are missteps along the way. And yet Joshua is growing and growing in stature and power, and being elevated in the eyes of the people and the eyes of the nations, as Rahab clearly delineates in the passage here in Joshua. All right, so thank you guys for working through the text like that. That was helpful and encouraging to hear you read Hebrew. So let's take a break. I don't know how long you normally take. I'd say 10-ish minutes maybe. So let's strive for about quarter after the hour, a couple minutes after after the hour, and then we'll resume with our next phase. I'll probably be sharing some stuff from Joshua and Judges, so we'll do that after break. All right, we'll see you in a bit.
Michael, can you hear me? I was in, I think
Yes,
about
Ron.
7 years ago, I was in Uganda.
7 years ago.
I think it was about, yeah, I was in 2017. It's almost 8 years ago now, a little over 8 years ago.
Oh, really? Which part of Uganda?
I think we were in Kampala. Yeah, right near
Oh.
that's the capital, right?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Yeah, we were near Kampala. I think it was a smaller area, but it was near there.
Oh,
Yeah,
that
I was
was
in
for
Kenya
ministry
for a
or
couple days, and then I was in Uganda for a few days.
wow.
That was with CEF, or Child Evangelism Fellowship.
Oh, yes.
The CEF ministry of Uganda was celebrating I think their 40th year of ministry.
Oh, I see.
So I was there for that. That was
Wow.
neat. It was a very good experience.
Yeah, you are welcome again.
Thank you. Hope I do get to go again.
Just got out of elections and there was no internet for the last probably 5 days.
Wow.
Hi, Chris.
Hi, Michael. Why do they shut off the internet during the election?
Well, they say to avoid people, social media is a force for carrying out demonstrations and, all that kind of thing that probably would bring violence. Well, that's the reason this.
How was Seoul, South Korea?
Oh, well, it was a successful trip. Very cold, my first experience.
What's bitter cold?
Uh-oh, I'd never felt cold that way.
It was probably, 60 degrees Fahrenheit?
I think it was -4.
Celsius?
Yes, I've never had that in my life.
All right, gentlemen, I think we're back. So we'll resume a little bit here. So my thought was I would in this next section kind of go over some of the notes I have on this section of the Bible and see if there are any interpretive questions that you have. I typically, I teach at Detroit Baptist Seminary all the Old Testament content classes as well as Hebrew grammar first and second year. But so we divide it into 4: Pentateuch, historical books, prophets, and poetic books. But this class is Calvary, from what I can see, follows the Hebrew Bible arrangement. So OT Synthesis 2 is specifically looking at the prophets, right? So understanding Joshua through Kings as the former prophets, and then Isaiah through the book of the 12 as the latter prophets. So for the purposes of tonight, just looking at Joshua and Judges. All right, so let me see if I can share my screen and then go from there. All right, I'm not used to Teams, so you have to bear with me for a moment here. I usually use Zoom, so sorry about that.
Chris can probably walk you through. He's our resident expert.
IT
Okay.
support?
Yeah. Well, I have a PowerPoint file, but when I hit share, it doesn't doesn't let
You
me.
share, and then you choose the screen that you want, like your second monitor.
Oh, okay.
You just double click on your second monitor,
Yeah, I don't have a second monitor here at home,
or
so.
then
Just
your main screen. Double click
Oh,
on
I
it.
see. Okay,
Whatever's
so
under the screen.
okay, and then that will show you what is on my whatever's on my screen.
Yep.
yes.
Okay, gotcha.
Sure.
All right, so let me try that.
There you go.
Okay, so can you see that?
Mhm.
Book of
Yes.
Joshua. Okay.
Yes.
All right, excellent. Okay,
Yep.
so I usually I have course notes as well as PowerPoint that I do. So I'm just going to go through the PowerPoint just for sake of time, because of course, you know, this isn't like a normal semester class where we would have a few weeks on the book of Joshua per se. So I'm just going to look at some of the background things. So title and canonicity, the Hebrew title of the book is named after its main character. There are 4 forms of his name: Yehoshua, then Vehosheah, Yehoshua, and Yeshua. We recognize, of course, that this anticipates the name Jesus in the New Testament, because the Septuagint title is Jesus. So Joshua is the Hebrew form of Jesus' name. And so Joshua, as a prophet, anticipates in some ways Jesus. So there's a connection there. In the Syriac version, Job is placed between Deuteronomy and Joshua under the assumption Moses wrote Job, but in most versions, Joshua immediately follows Deuteronomy. So this is, you know, what David Noel Friedman called the primary history, which he says is Genesis to Kings. The first 9 books really comprise half the Old Testament, and so this is a significant portion of Scripture. The critical view of the book is that there are various literary strands and a late final form, thinking particularly of the fact that you know, there are tribal allotments and inheritances that the critical scholars would assign to a later period, and so they're applying redaction criticism to the book of Joshua, sort of as they do to the Pentateuch with the JEDP theory and other things. The traditional view is that it's written by Joshua. So in Joshua 24, 26, Joshua says that, or it says of Joshua that he writes these things and he lays them up before the Lord. Let me bring up that text. Joshua 24, 26. Joshua wrote these words in the book of the law of God. He took a large stone and set it up there under the terebinth tree that was by the sanctuary of the Lord. So this is one of the verses that we point to suggest that the writers of Scripture were conscious of the writing of Scripture, that there was a canonical consciousness, that they were writing these books as Scripture, and that they were storing them in the sanctuary, so in the tabernacle, where the sacred books are kept. And then later in 1 Samuel 10:25, Samuel will also write a book which is stored up before the Lord. The traditional view in terms of the dating is that these events are written by Joshua soon after the events take place, sometime after 1400 BC. I take the view, I largely follow Steinman's chronology that suggests that the conquest takes roughly 7 years and goes from about 1406 to 1399 BC. So that's sort of how I see the chronology there. And then Joshua is writing this sometime after these events, toward the end of his life. And of course, the end of the book includes his death, likely written by someone later, such as Phineas. All right, the purpose of the book is to show the initial fulfillment of God's covenant promise to the patriarchs to give the land of Canaan to their descendants. David Howard writes that the major purpose of the book of Joshua is to describe God's giving of the promised land to Canaan to his people Israel, that it was a gift from God is repeatedly emphasized in the book, as well as it's being a fulfillment of the promise to Israel's ancestors. We saw this already in the opening 9 verses of the book, that this is the land sworn by God to give to their ancestors, to their fathers. And so there are 2 portions of the book that emphasize the taking and distribution of the land. So after they cross the Jordan, and beginning with the conquest of Jericho, and then culminating in the northern campaign, and then the second half being the tribal allotments. So entrance into Canaan in the first 5 chapters, conquest of Canaan, division of Canaan, and then obedience in Canaan. The last 3 chapters have to do with issues related to their faithfulness in the land, their unity. There's an episode where the Transjordanian tribes set up an altar, and this sets off a potential internecine conflict between the Cisjordanian tribes within the land and the Transjordanian tribes. I think that in a way hints at what will be a problem in the book of Judges, and that is hints of spiritual apostasy. In the case of Joshua, it's smoothed over, and they reaffirm everyone living in the land that they're not actually apostatizing, but they're just trying to set up a marker to commemorate the Lord so that they don't forget. But it already shows there's an unease on the part of the people, wondering if there will be some lapse into idolatry, and so it sets off the warning. When we come to the tribal distribution, 4 key points here. God is concerned about the ordinary facets of life, in that the very boundaries of the apportioned land are of great significance theologically and practically. So there's a lot of detail about the land. It's a little bit harder for readers outside of that context to understand it completely, because we don't know the places, we don't know the features of the land as they do, but it shows that God's concerned with details. He's concerned with life in the land. It's not that the land is spiritualized into some abstract notion. It's the actual terrain, the actual hills and valleys and rivers and slopes that will comprise this land. God is faithful to fulfill his promises down to the last detail. So within this context, God is doing everything that is up to him to do. That's one of the themes of Joshua, is that in as much as it's up to him, he's been faithful to fulfill his promises. Now, when we get to the book of Judges, there's a question about why is there still land to conquer? And so some would point to this fact, the idea that there's a theoretical conflict between Joshua and Judges, because in Joshua it seems like the land is handed over, and then in Judges it seems that there's still much territory to conquer. But I don't think that that we need to see that as a conflict, because already in Joshua there are hints that there's still much territory to conquer. And I think the point of Joshua, the focus of Joshua, is that God's done everything that he's obligated to do. He's done everything to provide them the resources they need. Judges is about their lack of faith in the Lord, so their failure to fulfill their end of the commitment. Number 3, what God started with Moses, he follows to completion with Joshua. So Joshua is truly Moses' successor. Joseph and Judah are treated as firstborn sons. These tribes are prominent in the narrative. Judah first, 2 chapters, followed by Joseph. So Judah leapfrogs Reuben, Simeon, and Levi for his inheritance, and Joseph is given a double portion. So Joseph is sort of treated like the firstborn in the sense that he gets a double portion and gets a significant portion of land. If you look at the pink sections in this map, those are all Joseph's descendants that get this land, and that includes Joshua, of course, Joshua being from the tribe of Ephraim, which was, the strong northern tribe. In the book of Hosea, Ephraim is shorthand for the northern kingdom, because that was the prominent tribe from which the kings often came. Jeroboam, it's where Joshua comes from. And then Joshua is really seen in a way as a second Joseph. He's like his ancestor Joseph, lives to 110 years old. There's a connection with the burying of the bones that's mentioned in connection to Joshua's burial. So I think he's seen as the worthy successor to his ancestor Joseph. So we're to see a connection there. So Joseph is sort of like a firstborn. And then Judah also, he goes first, just like in the wilderness wandering, the tribe of Judah went first, which is really the royal position, because it would be a king that would lead them into battle. This ties back into Genesis 49 that says the scepter will not depart from Judah. So the prophecy of Jacob on his deathbed that Judah's line will be the line from which the king comes. I think I often teach it this way, that Genesis 37 to 50, so the last major portion of the book of Genesis, is really about two brothers, Joseph and Judah, and they're elevating, rising in stature. And what's interesting is Reuben plays a role, but it's almost always as a foil to Judah. So if you read those stories, what often happens is Reuben will say something to his father or brothers, and they won't really follow. So he's sort of trying to act as the firstborn son, but doesn't end up convincing them. Then Judah will speak next, and they follow him. And so Judah is kind of rising. This happens with Joseph when they sell him to the Ishmaelite traders. Reuben wants to do one thing, they actually follow Judah. It happens later when they have to take Benjamin back down to Egypt because Simeon has been kept there. And Reuben pleads with Jacob, you can kill my two sons if I don't bring him back. That's a Canaanite way of talking, because that's how the Canaanites would deal with just retribution laws. And then Judah says, I'll take the blame on myself. And then he persuades Jacob. And then the last time is when they're in front of Joseph and they don't realize that he understands them. And Reuben says something to the effect of, this is because, we're guilty. And Judah's the one that actually persuades Joseph and tells him the whole backstory. And that's when Joseph finally reveals himself. So Judah becomes an integral character in terms of leading among the brothers. And so it's rightful in that sense that these two tribes are significant within the distribution of the land.
Dr. Dunham, could you comment just briefly on, that's a lot of bringing Judah forward in the last 13 chapters. But what would then been the purpose to talk about Tamar and Judah? It's such a stark contrast.
Yeah. Well, what it does seem to highlight Joseph's character as a man of integrity, in the sense that you have juxtaposed those two stories. So you have Joseph with Potiphar's wife and Judah with Tamar. But the way I understand chapter 38 is that's the watershed moment of repentance in Judah's life, because he gives Tamar what would often be characterized as royal symbols, his staff, his cord, his signet. So he's sort of, another point just being, in that section of Genesis, what people wear is very important, their clothing. You'll notice that whenever there's a scene change, Joseph often changes his clothes, or he gets new clothing. When he's elevated to second in command, he's given new clothes, and so on and so forth. And the robe, of course, is important in the first part of the story. So what I see happening in chapter 38 is that's the watershed moment where Judah becomes a changed man. And he makes a statement toward the end of that chapter where he says, she is more righteous than I am. Up to that point, he's been incredibly callous in the story. He's wanted to sell Joseph to these Ishmaelite traders. If you figure out the math there, each brother gets about 4 months' wages in the deal. So he sort of doesn't care about Joseph's life. He just wants to make a profit. And then later, when he finds out Tamar is pregnant, he says, well, we're going to burn her alive. So he's ruthless and doesn't really seem to exhibit very much compassion. And after that incident where he says she's more righteous, he seems to be a changed man. Like from that point forward, he's humbled. He speaks in ways that are persuasive. So that seems to me to be, it's almost a release valve in the sense that he's taken a lead in the role of selling Joseph. And so there almost needs to be a pivot moment where he repents and recognizes his shortcomings. I don't know if that answers all the questions, but that's kind of how I would read it.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay. So, and then we have the Levites. The Levites are dispersed throughout the land. This is a reminder that the whole nation is to be serving Yahweh, the true God, as a kingdom of priests. They're to be teaching Torah, teaching the law to the people. And it's sort of like there are outposts scattered throughout the land where there are supposed to be true centers of Torah teaching of the Mosaic law. Now we know that, of course, in the book of Judges, we find Levites, instead of teaching Torah, they're doing reprehensible things. There's a Levite involved in idolatry and apostasy, and then we're shocked to find he's a direct descendant of Moses, Moses' own grandson. Then we find a Levite who dismembers his concubine and sends her through the land in a gruesome act, and that whole sequence seems to be saying Israel's worse than Sodom and Gomorrah. They've reached the absolute nadir of moral depravity. And so Levites are supposed to be teaching the Torah, but if they fail in that, which they often do, it portends that the nation will fail, because the nation is to be a kingdom of priests itself. So the Levites are sort of like the canary in the coal mine, spiritually speaking. If as they go, so goes the nation. So the people were to give freely and willingly to God, shown by their generous and gracious offer of these cities. They were to practice giving embodied in the tithe, by which they would render back a portion of their proceeds to God's work and servants. The nation was to be unified in its distribution to show that they were one people under Yahweh, the true God. So it's not just an afterthought. That's also an important part of the distribution. This just kind of shows the birth order and the inheritance order. So Judah takes primacy, but then Joseph gets the double portion as the firstborn. Then Rachel's second son, Benjamin, followed by the two primary sons of Leah, of Simeon and Zebulun, and then Issachar, Asher, Naphtali, and Dan. The tribes of Reuben and Gad were already given inheritances by Moses back earlier, and so they're across the Jordan, and then Levi has no inheritance because he's dispersed, as is and Simeon is sort of absorbed into Judah as well. All right, some key interpretive issues in the book. One would be the mention of Apiru. In the Amarna letters, discovered in the late 19th century, a series of correspondence between key Canaanite city-states and the Egyptian pharaoh Amenhotep IV alludes to the menacing presence of Apiru in the land of Canaan, a reference which many thought initially to describe the intrusion of Israelites. Naaman notes the resemblance between the names Habiru and Hebrew, the proximity of their location, as well as the close chronological relationship between the Amarna Habiru and the Israelites, aroused the imagination of scholars, bringing about immediate equation of the groups. This was ill-fated, however. The term was discovered in some 210 other ancient Near Eastern documents from around the Fertile Crescent, and so this dispelled the exclusive connection to the Israelites. It seems rather to signify migrants who were uprooted from their original political and social framework and forced to adapt to a new environment. So we might call, I've sometimes used the word insurgents. It's sort of the idea that they're not native to the area and they're coming in and encroaching on the native population and disrupting the social order going on. Thus, they were typically tribal or nomadic peoples seeking refuge in a foreign land. In the context of the Canaanite city-states, these migrants had become insurgents. The propinquity, meaning the nearness of the terms Apiru and Hebrew, may have led to the correlation. Proven, Long, and Longman say this: it appears that just as the attempted simple equation of the Hebrews and Apiru was misguided, so too is the denial of any possible relationship. If one assumes the earlier date for the Exodus, the Apiru relationship may be closer. So they put it this way: not every Apiru could be an Israelite, but some Israelites, troublesome migrants during the settlement period, might well have been Apiru. So it seems to be just a generic term for threatening people groups that have come into the land and are a menace or a concern to society there. All right, alleged conflict with judges, talked about this a little bit, but much discussion has revolved around purported contradictions between the conquest described within the book of Joshua and the situation ensuing at the opening of the book of Judges. We see in Joshua 11:23, so Joshua took the whole land according to all that the Lord had spoken to Moses, and Joshua gave it for an inheritance to Israel according to their tribal allotments, and the land had rest from war. This has often been pitted against what appears to be a gradual infiltration in Judges 1:1 to 2:5. And in Judges, as we know and we'll see, it's an inheritance of diminishing returns. That is to say, each tribe gets progressively worse in what it accomplishes in that opening sequence, just as each judge gets progressively worse in terms of how much rest he achieves and in his moral character and qualities. So going on here, what do we say to this? Several points. One, there are indications already in Joshua, not all cities are under Israelite control. So Jerusalem would be an example where they kill the king of Jerusalem, but then Jerusalem still is inhabited by Jebusites, so it doesn't seem that they actually take the city. Additionally, the territories surrounding Israel's promised land are not conquered. We have the Philistines and other people groups. Number two, rather than a putatively swift conquest, which some verses might suggest, correlating all the data affirms the conquest takes place over a number of years and is therefore not inconsistent with the description at the outset of Judges. And remember, God says you're going to conquer the land little by little so that the wild beasts don't become too numerous for you. And so it's a gradual conquering of the land. And then number three, the purpose of Joshua is to demonstrate Yahweh's faithfulness in providing the land. The purpose of Judges is to demonstrate the Israelites' unfaithfulness in failing to take the land due to their weakness, corruption, and unbelief. All right, a couple other themes that are important, and then I'll see if there are any interpretive questions about the book we can get to. The land, the concept of land appears more than 50 times. This is an inauguration of God's promises to the patriarchs and the work begun under Moses. The tribal distribution with its details emphasizes the primacy of the land in the outworking of the book and of God's promises to Israel. So the land becomes primary. Even in those 9 verses we read, Ha-eretz is repeated several times. Joshua and the covenant. God inaugurates the covenant promises, and the Israelites under Joshua's godly leadership observe the covenant. The law is mentioned 8 times in Joshua, and on each occasion emphasis falls on the people's obedience. Joshua is elevated as the worthy successor to Moses and as a prophet and lawgiver in his own right. He becomes the servant of Yahweh at the end of his life, just as Moses did. All right, purity of worship. The Israelites' entry into the land, their purification ceremonies, the distribution of the territories all point to divine holiness as a central concern. Joshua enters the land as one would enter a sanctuary. Now, I haven't seen this elsewhere in print, but this is my own understanding that the tabernacle reprises creation in certain ways. For instance, you have a lampstand which shines light on the bread of the presence. And that the wording there to give light is reminiscent of how the sun gives light that symbolizes life. You have cherubim guarding the way to the Holy of Holies, just like in the entrance to Eden, cherubim are placed to guard the way. There are sacred stones that the priest wears. So the way I teach it is Eden is really seen as a sanctuary and a kingdom. You come from the east. He removes his shoes. Only Moses does this, even though the priests probably did not wear shoes. He meets an angel with an unsheathed sword, which replicates the cherubim with rotating swords at the entrance to Eden and in the tabernacle temple. So he's seen here as entering a land which will be holy, not because the Canaanites live there, it's polluted by them, but it's because God is going to inhabit this land. He's picked it for himself. And I even going beyond this, and not everybody would agree with me on this, but I think sometimes the land almost seems to take a role as a minor character in the narrative. And what I mean by that is the land is a witness with God to the covenant, which doesn't mean just that the land sees the covenant taking place. It means the land participates with God as a witness to the covenant, meaning if there's a covenant infraction, the land will partner with God to punish and judge them, partly by refusing to yield crops and partly by vomiting them out of the land. Leviticus talks about vomiting the Israelites out of the land. And this is partly why with the sin of Achan, and then when the 5 kings are hanged on trees, it's almost as if the land is participating in the judgment. And I mentioned this, I was preaching on Joshua 10 last week, that hanging the 5 kings on 5 trees signifies that the land is participating in the execution of criminals who have shaken their fists in God's face and have flouted his law. And so the land is purging them from it. From the land is purging the evildoers from their midst. So there's a purity of worship and a holiness that really pervades the book. And then rest, the concept of rest is part of the inheritance. This entails settlement in the land and the cessation of conflict. The book focuses on the 7th day to emphasize this theme: the crossing of Jordan, defeat of Jericho on the 7th day, confrontation of the Gibeonites, and completion of the southern campaign are all stylized as coming to fruition on the 7th day. Such framing emphasized Yahweh's prominence as king, in that on the 7th day of creation, God rested in taking his throne as supreme ruler over all creation.
Dr. Dunham, I have a question for you.
Sure.
So if I understand it correctly, and I have no idea if this is significant, but when he says to take off your shoes, it actually is singular. It said take off your shoe. And is that, and in Exodus, it was his shoes, plural. Is there any significance to that?
I haven't really thought about that. That's a good observation. Yeah, I'll have to think about that. I know the shoe often signifies leadership. When I say leadership, I mean like inheritance rights. I'm thinking of Boaz and Ruth. So I'd have to think through that a little bit more. Do you have a thought on it, or?
Well, if there is a significance, I think it does relate to that basic law that if I can't keep the obligation of the family rights, I give you my shoe, singular. And it almost sounds like in that moment Joshua is confessing, I can't carry out this battle. You'll have to go before me. Is the connection, but I wasn't sure if that was accurate or not.
Yeah, it's possible. I hadn't given that a lot of thought, so that's a really great point to make. I appreciate it. All right, I talked in that video last time about Yahweh war, so I'm not going to go over that this time. And that takes me to the end of the book of Joshua. Let me see if there are any, let me stop sharing for a second here and see if there are any other interpretive issues. You want to talk about the long day? Somebody had mentioned that. Was it Brendan?
Mentioned that.
Yeah. Okay. So in Joshua 10, let me just kind of go get that in front of me here.
And as you're doing it, you were talking about the land agreeing with God. The ground, I could, Genesis 4 with the blood crying out from the ground came to my mind.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's good. Yeah, I say that somewhat tentatively because I'm not suggesting some kind of pantheism or whatever.
Right.
But right. I read a really good book written by Jerry Huang a couple years ago that's been influential on me. It's called something like Contextualization in the Old Testament. He teaches in Singapore, and he mentions several things in the Old Testament that Westerners tend to miss because of our secular, scientific, materialist culture that are very apparent to other cultures. And where he is in Southeast Asia, I've noticed this in Uganda. I taught on the book of Jeremiah in Uganda 2 years ago, and we spent a lot of time talking about idolatry. And the way that I distinguish it is to say, in America, we would talk about idolatry and basically say something like this: you shouldn't be an idol worshiper because it's foolish to worship sticks and stones, because they're just sticks and stones, and it's foolish to think that to worship things that are clearly just inert and have no function. In other cultures, you'd be more liable to say those sticks and stones actually represent the power of some demonic force. The reason you shouldn't be an idolater is because that God has no power compared to Yahweh. Yahweh is the strong power. This God is the weak power, and that's really what idolatry is about. It's a polemical contest between a more powerful God than the God of the witch doctor, the God of the outsiders. And I think that's probably closer to how Jeremiah's culture would have thought about idolatry than we are. And so it's helpful to kind of be pushed a little bit to think outside our Western box sometimes.
What was the name of that book again?
It's by Jerry Hwang. So it's Hwang. It's called Contextualization. I think it's called Contextualization in the Old Testament. He talks about sin concepts. And what my original point of that was, he talks about the land as, he says in non-Western cultures, there's more of a willingness to see the land as having a certain dynamism, is the word he uses. So it's not pantheism, but it's almost as if there's a living vitality within the land. I was just teaching a class last week at Shepherd's Theological Seminary out in Cary, North Carolina, and I was talking to a guy who's from the Navajo Nation, who's a student there, and he said it was hard to come to seminary because, in a sense, missionaries over there tend to say, well, you need to forget all the customs of your ancestors, because they would talk about the spirits and they would talk about the land as, having inanimate qualities, and we need to just kind of forget that because that's not reality. And he said, is there a way to sort of integrate the gospel in a more meaningful way? And of course, I want to be careful because I don't want to suggest, some kind of polytheistic background. But I think, there was an understanding that the world is a place where God is. There's a divine presence in the land that we might say today. There's a certain enchantment to the land because of its reflection of God, and that there are powers involved. And so anyway, I'm just talking out loud here, but trying to think through these concepts for myself. So seeing some dynamic quality. In the sun standing still, there are several ways to take this. One is to take this as, particularly in verse 13, it says the sun stood still and the moon stopped. And some take that it was a solar eclipse. I'm bringing this passage up because the word, I think it's damam, can mean to grow dark. There's a homonym for the term that means that. So I'm looking up in the Hebrew Bible here.
Right, but I would say that because it says it didn't go down for about a whole day, so it seems to change the chronology of a day. And then it says there was no other day like it, which changes it from just a basic eclipse.
Right. And the another argument to add to that is an eclipse would help both sides.
Yeah.
Because if an eclipse is to keep the heat, it would also help them to escape, because it would create darkness and it would take the heat away. So I don't find that very persuasive. It says to stand still. So the way I understand that is we have to see this as a spectacular miracle in the way it's described in the text. There's been no day like it. Now, what exactly that means is still debated. The way I've typically thought about it is to see two possibilities, although there are three. The third would be that the earth actually stops rotating. The challenge with that is that would be an enormous miracle, perhaps the greatest miracle since creation, because it would create cataclysmic catastrophes. We'd have earthquakes, we'd have tsunamis. Just imagine what would happen. So the two more viable options to me are that the Lord slows the rotation without necessarily causing those catastrophic effects, or that that it's a localized miracle, meaning the light is extended in this area but not in other areas. So I've typically in seminary classes taught it as a localized extension of the light. When I was preaching through Joshua, I cited on the idea that he slowed the rotation of the earth because of the enormous, meaning of the miracle, there's never been a day like this. Along with that, I think what that's specifically talking about is there's never been a day, well, within the context, what's surprising about it is the narrator says there's never been a day like this when the Lord heeded the voice of a man. You would expect him to say when the Lord caused the sun to stop. But he says the Lord heeded the voice of the man. And so I say, well, doesn't God always do that when he answers our prayer? Doesn't he heed the voice of the man? So what is this talking about? I think what it's talking about is that Joshua is actually participating in dictating battle strategy on the fly, which up to this point has been the sole purview of the Lord. The Lord gives strategy, Joshua obeys. But here Joshua is elevating, and I want to say this carefully, but he's almost transcending human limitations to actually command the sun and the moon within the context of the battle. And so he's acting in a way that almost transcends his human limitations, and the Lord allows it to happen. So I've kind of seen that as how, what that exactly is saying is that's how the Lord heeded the voice of the man by, allowing Joshua to speak to the sun and the moon. And in a way, I'm not a Christocentric interpreter, but as I work through Joshua, I am often getting to the gospel. I know that people in the congregation are there that are not saved. And so there's a sense in which Jesus, even more than Joshua, can command the wind and the waves and all these sorts of things. So I usually use analogies to get to Christ, not types, if that makes sense. So just like, a mere man can command the sun, we know that that Jesus, when he came, could command the wind and the waves, and he was in control of nature as the perfect man and as God. So corralling and harnessing, he's the second Adam, but he's also the God man. Anyway, so I don't know. Does that answer, Britton, or do you have a follow-up on that?
It's as good as anything I've come up with myself, and there are no really strong answers. It's such a unique event. And anyway, you look at it, your second statement about if it happened, the cataclysmic nature of it actually happening in that literal sense, unless we change from heliocentric to geocentric in our thinking, it creates more problems than we could imagine. So,
right.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah.
Good. I like your third answer there. That's something I hadn't quite put into the localized idea, and the idea of because Yahweh listened to his voice. But yeah, those things are helpful. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Does anything else come to mind in Joshua that are interpretive questions that anybody has? Trying to think through. I have an excursus where I talk about Rahab's potential lie and kind of like what that means. And I don't really have time to get into that because that's a lengthy discussion. But it would seem, Rahab is the most alluded to woman in the New Testament of any Old Testament woman other than Sarah. So it's really interesting that she gets prominence like that. She's commended in both James and in Hebrews, but it's not because she misleads, but because she exhibits faith. So I think it's a complicated discussion. I will say, there are about 8 to 10 occasions in the Old Testament where someone misleads the authorities when they seek to take the life of someone who's innocent. And so I think it becomes a complicated ethical thing. So I've typically, I hesitate to even get into this, but I sort of follow John Frame's approach to this, which is what he calls non-conflicting moral absolutism. That when we actually understand the law of God, it's unitive and it can't be contradictory. So if a parent pulls up to a store and says to his child, go in and steal some candy, and the child refuses to do that, it would seem to be a conflict between honor your father and mother and you shall not steal. But if you really understand it, the command to honor your father and mother is in the Lord. So when they command something that's opposed to God's command, they've invalidated their authority in that respect. So then it's not actually a conflict. So working that out can be a little complicated, but I sort of take that approach. So in this case, it's sort of saying she's not commended for her deception, but for her act of faith in endangering her life to protect the spies. And we can see this in the case of, Michael does this twice with David. There's an unnamed woman who protects the two spies, Jonathan and Ahimaaz, when they're fleeing from Absalom. And this happens, as I said, about 8 times, particularly in the life of David. David is the one most associated with these deception incidents. All right, so that's one.
I thought it was interesting that Rahab, in terms of defining her faith, she cites an incident of the Exodus that was 4 decades prior. So, that had to be a quite a statement to say, well, listen, it was over 40 years ago. My grandfather's dead already, but we believe that, So I
Right.
thought that was impressive.
It is. Yeah, it's interesting how much the Canaanites seem to know, just like the Gibeons seem to know a lot. So it seems that word travels, and Rahab has one of the longest speeches in the book. It might even be the longest speech, and it's exhibiting her faith. So she really becomes a central character in the whole scope of the book of Joshua, which is really interesting.
A quick question, and I can't find it, but there's a reference to Rahab, and it's not the prostitute in the Old Testament. It's a strange reference. Do you know what I'm talking about?
There's a few references to Rahab as some kind of a monster
Yeah, something like
equivalent
that.
to Leviathan. The word Rahab means broad or wide, and there are a couple places in the Psalms where Egypt is likened to Rahab. Let me see if I can find it.
Yeah, I was looking.
Is that Psalm 89?
Yep, Psalm 89:10.
10?
You crushed
maybe 10.
Rahab like a
There it is,
carcass.
Yeah.
Psalm 87 also
4.
says, among those who know me, I mentioned Rahab and Babylon. And then Isaiah 51:9 says, awake, awake, put on strength, O arm of the Lord, awake as in days of old, generations of long ago. Was it not you who cut Rahab in pieces, who pierced the
Right.
dragon?
That's it.
That seems to be very close to the Baal cycle in terms of a reference to cutting Leviathan or cutting the coiling serpent. So off the top of my head, I don't know if I have a detailed answer to give other than Rahab seems to be a cipher or a figure of speech for God's enemies, particularly embodied in these forces that it's sort of like the sea monsters that oppose God. And so it kind of becomes a shorthand for the Exodus event in that God parted the waters. He crushed the heads of the serpents and the monsters who would combat them.
Yeah, no, thanks. It's always I've studied it a bit going, I'm not sure if these answers are what I'm looking for. I just found it to be, somebody called me out on it once, and I'm like, oh, let me spend some time looking at that.
Yeah.
So I kind of came to that, some kind of either figuratively evil wickedness against God in action, or it's some kind of physicality that God crushed or slain the same way he did. If it's some literal form, I don't have an answer, but some type of slaying.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I never had a good answer. I tried, and I'm like, I really don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
I have one last question. Last question. So and I think it's the Hedgelon Valley, the hail rained down on the king's armies there.
Yeah.
That strikes me as if what's being portrayed is that the God of Joshua is bigger than the God of Baal, who would have been credited with controlling the weather. And it just seems as if that's becomes a bit of a statement. Is that a misunderstanding or a correct understanding?
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, God intervenes in the battle at that point. Baal's the storm god. He's always pictured with a war rattle and a bolt of lightning. And so he's the one who brings rain. So anything coming from the sky, this is very clear in the Elijah confrontation. Everything in that sequence is set up to favor Baal. It's on their sacred site. It's following their rules. Everything is orchestrated to help Baal be successful, and yet he's impotent. And so, yeah, when stones are being thrown from the sky, there's Psalm 29 being another example. I see Psalm 29 as clearly a polemic against Baal worship, because the voice of the Lord thunders, the voice of the Lord is over many waters, and that's sort of a subtle reference to Baal's powerlessness. God is the God of the storm. So yeah, I mean, I would see a connection.
Thank you.
All right, gentlemen. Well, let's take our next break, and when we come back, I'll say some words on Judges, and then we'll talk about Dorsey and kind of end class with a short discussion of Dorsey and your thoughts on that portion. Okay, so let's take about 10 minutes again, and we'll resume after that.
Hello, Steve. How was your trip to Kenya?
It was very good. And how was your trip, brother? Did it go well for you?
Yeah, it went well.
Good, good. Well, thank you. My trip went well, and uh, we are probably going to go back to do some medical missions there. So we'll work on that.
You should think about coming to Uganda.
Okay, I'll pray about it.
Okay, okay.
Mhm.
Uh,
So, Dr. Dunham, so Dearborn's made quite a bit of the news, and there was that one YouTube or one spot where the Christian was told he wasn't welcome there. Um, do you know that gentleman?
I don't know the gentleman, but I live about 10 minutes from Dearborn.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I will go there not too often, but every once in a while. There are a lot of really good coffee shops, and
Yeah.
my daughter goes to a community college in Dearborn. So we have some connections there, and yeah, so it's an
Well,
interesting place.
well, the brother actually is in the circles that I travel,
Okay.
and he was threatened. They were threatened. Their lives were
Interesting.
threatened. And as a result, they came to a conference that I was at in California, and they were actually kind of rattled. And so they were sort of traveled around for about a month or two. But I just got a text from them this last week that they are back home. Ted Barnum, Ted and his wife,
Okay.
and they're doing okay.
Hmm.
He's a strong believer and tries to be polite and courteous, but it tries to be a testimony.
Yeah. Yeah, it's difficult, for sure. There's, it's sort of there just are a lot of Muslims in our area. When a house goes up for sale in our area, inevitably it seems that it's bought by a Muslim family, and they're just kind of
Yeah,
becoming entrenched in this area. So
right.
it's interesting. But
I really enjoyed your comments on the differences between Yahweh war and jihad. I thought that was very interesting and insightful.
I agree. I did. I like that. I liked how
Okay.
the differentiation you made between those.
Yeah,
Good.
it's good. Now, will these slides and or written content, will that be posted anywhere for us?
Yeah, I can post it.
Yes. And the notes
So
you said too, that we're not going to be able to get to, that would be great
okay,
for
sure.
deeper study. Appreciate that.
We promise we won't use them
Well,
against you.
Of course.
Okay, that sounds good.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Glad to.
Thank you.
All right. Well, I'm gonna just push on here because it's getting late, and I'm trying to keep the energy I've been teaching all day. So you guys can understand, I'm sure. All right.
Yep.
So let me just get into Judges. So I thought in this next section we'll just kind of talk about some of the issues related to Judges, and then spend the last bit of time on Dorsey and any thoughts you have on Dorsey, and then we'll land the plane for tonight. Okay, so Judges, this word shofatim, judges, is the Hebrew term for the administrative leaders. I like to point out, at least to American context, that judges doesn't necessarily mean black-robed officials, much less with powdered wigs that are handing out sentences. It really sort of is a word that means governor or administrator, and so it can be a political, military, and ideally even spiritual leader. So that's what the judges are. And I take this even in the New Testament when Paul says that we will judge angels. it's sort of, I think he's saying that in the millennial kingdom, we will have oversight even over the angelic sphere. We'll judge them as administrative leaders. The Septuagint, Vulgate, English versions derive their titles from the Hebrew Bible, and the canonicity of Judges has not been seriously questioned, even though the book is not quoted extensively in other parts of the Bible. The text is well preserved with fewer variants than any other book outside the Pentateuch, so it's a well-preserved book. Source critical studies posited deuteronomistic strands within Judges, but this approach has been largely abandoned. Recent literary studies have shown the literary integrity of Judges as illustrative of its unified authorship. We'll talk a little bit more about this, but there's an inclusio at the beginning and end of the book that sort of moves outward in. It moves from failure of faith to religious apostasy, and then the epilogue moves from religious apostasy to failure of faith. So there's a framing device, and then the geographical movement of the tribes followed by the judges. So the point there being the sequence of the tribes in Judges 1 to 2:5 anticipates the sequence of the judges to follow. So it follows a similar order going from south to north. So we'll see that in a minute. As far as chronology, the ancient Near Eastern world powers were largely involved in internal affairs rather than seeking to subjugate Canaan during the time of the judges. So this left, relatively speaking, the freedom for Israelites to pursue their own measures within this period of time. One exception, well, a couple exceptions. We know, of course, that there were regional conflicts because of outside oppressors, so the Moabites or others. We also have the Merneptah Stele, where the Egyptian pharaoh Merneptah talks about coming into the land and wasting Israel's seed, something to that effect, which we know is ironic in terms of world history. Didn't actually happen, but he boasts to have done that. The chronology of Judges is somewhat problematic in that 1 Kings 6:1 states that Solomon dedicates the temple 480 years after the Exodus. The temple dedication occurs in 966 BC, seemingly not allowing sufficient time for the period of Judges if taken in a strictly linear fashion. Okay, there's a lot of information on this slide, but the point is the chronology from Solomon building the temple, if you follow the right-hand column, is 480 years. If you're just to add up the sequences of the numbers listed in Joshua and then Judges, you come up with 652. So clearly there must be some solution here, and the best seems to be, one view is Robert Chisholm's view that there are panels, so we have overlapping periods of time because of two panels. He talks about this in his Kregel Exegetical Library commentary on Judges. Another is just that the judges are regional leaders, so some of the judges could be simultaneous and they're more having to do with certain areas of the land. So this is Chisholm's view, that there are two panels that are somewhat concurrent. So Othniel would be around the same time as Gideon in this view. I tend to probably favor slightly the idea that they were regional leaders rather than necessarily having to see two panels. Okay, then the structure and outline of the book. I talked about their role, but the structure and outline, the inclusio is a two-part introduction and a two-part epilogue. The first prologue is linked to the second epilogue. The second prologue is linked to the first epilogue, so there's a framing. So A and A prime are ill-fated military campaigns that fail due to lack of faith in Yahweh's power, lack of national unity, and lack of godly leadership. So we see that in the first chapter. We see that with this almost like a civil war internecine conflict with the tribe of Benjamin. And so, you know, it's almost to the point of exterminating a tribe within the nation. In other words, they're sort of taking Yahweh war and turning it on themselves. And then we see a spiritual apostasy. So there's a lapse into idolatry, which is connected to this weeping in the first part. The angel of the Lord comes and confronts them. Just as an aside, the angel of the Lord appears most often in the book of Judges as opposed to any other book. And I think it's partly because there's a vacuum of leadership. The angel of the Lord is leading them. And perhaps ideally in the theocracy, when God is their king, it would be the angel of the Lord leading them. But in this case, it's to upbraid them, to rebuke them because of their lack of faith. So the angel of the Lord becomes a prominent figure in the book. And then there are 5 ways that these 2 parts mirror each other. Let me just say some words about this. The Jebusite threat in the prologue is actualized in the epilogue. So the Benjaminites are unable to drive out the Jebusites from Jerusalem. In the epilogue, the traveling Levite, his concubine, and his servant elect to bypass Jerusalem because of the Jebusites. So the Jebusites are still there, so they end up going on from there, and they get treated worse in Gibeah, which appears to have become more Canaanite than the Jebusite city. Number 2, oracular consultation of Yahweh's will lands on Judah as the designated tribal leader, but ends in failure due to lack of faith and godly leadership. So in nearly identical language, the tribes consult Yahweh about who should go up to fight. So we see this in Judges 1:1. After the death of Joshua, it says, then the tribes say to the Lord, who shall go up for us? And the Lord says, Judah shall go up. And the similar thing happens in the epilogue. The results are mixed, though, for several reasons. First, while Judah has limited success in the prologue, she fails disastrously in the epilogue. Second, while Judah is promised victory in the prologue, she is not in the epilogue, perhaps connected to the fact that she is warring against another tribe rather than the Canaanites. Third, God has already commanded and sanctioned the battle against the Canaanites in the prologue, but the proposed military action against Benjamin has no divine command nor sanction preceding it. In fact, in almost every other instance in the OT of divine consultation before battle, the general first asks Yahweh whether or not they should even go into battle, which they don't do here, they just assume. Number 3, the harem, devotion to destruction, is appropriately applied in the prologue, but inappropriately applied in the epilogue. In the prologue, the Israelites adhere to Yahweh's earlier instructions to devote the Canaanites to destruction. In the epilogue, however, Israel applies the harem to one of its own cities, Jabesh Gilead, for its failure to participate in the war against Benjamin. This appears to be a capricious and vengeful use of harem in a way not sanctioned by God. And there are also hints, I think, that Dan does the same thing against Laish because it's pictured as a quiet and unsuspecting city, and they come and utterly destroy it. Number 4, diminishing national fortunes are wept over at Bethel. In the prologue and epilogue, Israel weeps over its misfortunes owing to its own failure, probably in the same location. And then 5, appropriately arranged marriage is followed by inappropriately arranged marriages. Caleb appropriately gives his daughter in marriage in the prologue, but the Benjaminites inappropriately snatch wives for themselves in the epilogue. All right, the chiasm of the Judges follows a south to north geographical orientation, as does the tribal descriptions. So in other words, Judah begins from the south, just as the first judge is Othniel from the tribe of Judah, and then it works its way up, ending with Dan. And although they're given land in the southwest area at first, they then move up to the north, and the judges end with Samson, who's a Danite, the tribe that will later take the north. So there's, in other words, a similar sequence there. And then there are deteriorating results in both cases, in the tribal conquest and in the quality of the judges. So here's an example of that. So Judah to Dan, later in the north, Othniel, who's of the tribe of Judah. The central character, in a way, the pivotal character in the book of Judges is Gideon. Gideon goes, I'm still meditating on this, but I think there's a sense in which Gideon exemplifies the wrong kind of leadership that Israel has during this period where there's no king, in the sense that at first he rejects the trappings of royalty. He doesn't want to have a dynasty, and yet he's spiritually, he uses an ephod, so he's spiritually leading them astray. And then he names his son Abimelech, which means my father is king. So it's almost as if the name tells against this idea that he doesn't want a dynasty. He has 70 sons, which corresponds to Baal, has 70 sons as well. So there's certain things about Gideon that sort of raise red flags, even though, on the other hand, he is met with by the angel of the Lord, who proclaims that he's a man of valor, even though he's hiding from the Midianites. There's a lot of irony in the story, I think even dark humor. But he does become a valiant warrior by the end of it. So he's kind of the central figure in the flow of the Judges here, and in a sense encapsulates all that's wrong with the leadership. The deteriorating outcomes, if you kind of notice in this chart, at the beginning, a judge would typically give them 40 or more years of rest. Ehud attaining 80 years. By the end, we're in single digits in some cases, 10, and then Samson 20, and the oppression gets longer. The oppression goes from 8, 18 to 20 until by the time Samson's coming on the scene, it's been 40 years. So this is the spiritual declension of the nation. Political leadership, God is raising up charismatic leaders via theocratic anointing. I've talked about that, in spite of their persistent failure and apostasy. Number 2, the future leader would emerge from the tribe of Judah. Judah is given prominence through its repeated selection by God for leadership in military campaigns and producing the first effective judge, Othniel. Number 3, the future leader would be a king rather than a judge. We see this repeated refrain. In those days, there was no king. Everyone did what was right in his own eyes. That seems to my mind to be written by someone who is writing from the perspective of the monarchy having been established. This is why I favor someone like Samuel as the potential author of Judges. And also the other thing being, in the latter part of Judges, there's an interesting triangulation between Saul's hometown, David's hometown, and the Levites. So it's almost as if it's anticipatory in terms of what's coming down the pipeline. Then number 4, the future leader would unify and centralize the nation, perhaps in Jerusalem, which has a prominent place in the story. Covenant, God shows himself faithful to his covenant despite Israel's continuing lack of faith and moral ruin. So there's progressive failure as the tribes increasingly flounder. So Yahweh is with Judah. He takes possession of the hill country, but he cannot drive out the Canaanites. Benjamin, Manasseh, Ephraim, Zebulun do not drive out the Canaanites, so the Canaanites live among them. Asher and Naphtali do not drive out the Canaanites, so they live among the Canaanites. And Dan cannot even leave the hill country because of the Canaanites. So this is the deterioration of their success when it comes to driving out the people. So God's people fail to keep covenant obligations to take possession of the land, which results in oppression and hardship. This is exhibited poignantly in the central judge Gideon, who displays fear rather than faith. Incidentally, I'll just say this. I was taught in Sunday school as a child that Gideon leaves out the fleece as an act of faith, just to show that he trusts the Lord, and that Christians ought to do that when we're making, my mom used to say this, when she's making a decision, I'm just going to put out a fleece before the Lord. I think that we're actually supposed to see that as a lack of faith rather than actually displaying faith, in the sense that the test seems, again, to be geared toward Baal worship. Baal is the god that provides moisture and rain and dew. In the Baal myth, one of his daughters is named for the Semitic word for dew on the grass, D-E-W. So it seems that Gideon is sort of saying, prove to me you're more powerful than Baal, then I'll believe you. So I'm not convinced that it's an act of faith. I think it's an act of weakness rather than faith. So I wouldn't use that as an example of how we ought to go into decision making. All right, Daniel Block says Judges is important for the church because the church is becoming Canaanite, just like Israel was. He says the central theme of Judges is the Canaanization of Israel. And he says this is the key to the relevance of this ancient composition. because we've become like Israel. He says, we've largely forgotten the covenant Lord and have come to take for granted his gracious redemptive work on our behalf. We are being squeezed into the mold of the pagan world. He says there are evidences of Canaanization of the church everywhere, preoccupation with material prosperity, turning Christianity into a fertility religion, syncretistic and aberrant forms of worship, a refusal to obey the Lord's call to separation from the world, our divisiveness and competitiveness, our moral compromises, which make us appear just like non-Christian, our exploitation and abuse of women and children, our reluctance to answer the Lord's call to service, our propensity to displace thy kingdom come with my kingdom come, our eagerness to fight the Lord's battles with the world's resources and strategies, and our willingness to stand up and defend perpetrators of evil instead of justice. And I think he's onto something. I mean, we do see those traits, unfortunately, in the church today. And so Judges is a warning call against that sort of approach to life and ministry. All right, in terms of interpretive issues with Judges, I'll just say a few words about some of these. One would be Jephthah's vow. There's two principal views about what Jephthah's vow entails. One is that she becomes a perpetual virgin, that she goes into the mountains to mourn her virginity, and that the young women go out with her every year to commemorate that. I've typically taken it to mean that he actually does sacrifice her. The reason I say that is it says that when he returned, when she returned, he did to her according to his vow or something along those lines. So I'm not saying that it's a pretty picture. I mean, it's awful, of course, and we're supposed to be shocked and appalled by it. But as I'm reading it, it seems to me the most natural reading is that he does actually sacrifice her, which again is showing that the judges have reached the absolute bottom when it comes to their morality. So yeah, I see that as indicating their moral declension. All right, are there any other questions on Judges in terms of interpretive issues that you'd like me to address, or thoughts you have on the book?
Just on that case with Jephthah, isn't there a provision in the Torah that if you made a vow that you realize you shouldn't have made, that you could rectify that situation?
Yeah, I've been asked about that with respect to this story. There were some loopholes, particularly if a woman made a vow, the father or husband could annul that vow. And the Talmud talks about loopholes. However, that's probably a later tradition, so it's unclear what kind of loopholes there might have been. So I have to sort of answer that with it's possible, but I'm not persuaded that it's as clear enough to say that he would have had a loophole. I don't know. Do you have a follow-up on that, Steve? Or
no, it just strikes. I guess the lesson that I took from that was, if there was such a loophole practice, that would have been several hundred years since the law was given. I think it betrays the absolute void, emptiness of knowing the Word of God, and therefore, if it was a loophole and I didn't know it, I didn't obey it. And so, it just seems like it states the knowledge of the Word of God was at its weakest point.
right? Yes, and they're just being unfaithful across the board. It's almost as if they act like they didn't have the Torah, but we know that they did, because we know that the Levites are there and other things. But yeah.
So the other question I had for you, and I'm sorry to dominate, I'll shut up after this. That statement that in those days there was no king and everyone did that was right in their own eyes. Do you think that was a statement that was sort of setting the table for the Samuels and bringing in inaugurating the kingship idea, or was that just more of a statement of the the travesty of their situation? Was it a preparatory thing? One of the authors, Kostenberger, I thought, was speaking to that end, and I just wondered what you thought.
Yeah, so we could take it as descriptive. It's just describing what the situation was like. I've typically seen it as somewhat prospective in the sense that it's not necessarily that the people are evil because there's no king, because later when they have a king, they're also going to be evil and they're going to be sent into exile. But it's sort of compounding the fact that everyone's acting like a little king, and there's no major figure or king to unite them. And kingship, I talk about this, we'll maybe talk about this next time, but in 1 Samuel, Samuel is very upset when they ask for a king. And you almost might read that story and think that they weren't supposed to ask for a king. But I often respond to that by saying, but a king actually was a plan from the beginning. Deuteronomy 17 has regulations for a king. Genesis 17 promises that a king would come. And Judah's the one through whom it's going to come. So clearly a king was the plan. I think the problem was the timing and the motivation. They wanted it to be like other nations, and they wanted it now. And what they got was Saul. And Saul was sort of a concession. I wonder, and this is speculation, but I wonder if they had waited for God's timing, would David have been the first king? And then they wouldn't have gone through the pain and suffering of Saul's kingship, because it was a difficult time for the nation because Saul was not the right kind of leader. So all that to say, I think it could be saying there was no great king to unify the nation and lead them together to worship the Lord, and everyone was acting like their own little king, and it led to this apostasy and moral chaos.
Thank you.
Right, Michael, you had a question or a thought?
Yes, mine is also an interpretive issue concerning the immoral behavior of the Benjamites, concerning the concubine, and then the Israelites inquiring from Yahweh about whether to attack the Benjamites or not. And then Yahweh gives them a go-ahead. And twice, they don't see the victory until the third time. What could be your explanation on that?
Yeah. It's a difficult one. It's sort of like I'm reminded of when God allows Balaam to go to Balak to prophesy, and then he gets angry because he goes. And it seems like it's an inconsistency, right? That on the one hand, he's allowing, on the other hand, he's opposing. So what are we to make of this? I think in some cases, in the cases of the moral vices of the judges, for instance, I would often say that these are descriptive passages rather than prescriptive passages, meaning it's just a description of how things were without necessarily condoning them. So to my mind, and I don't know if this is the full answer or the best answer, but as the book of Judges goes on and they've deteriorated more and more, that it's almost as if God is just giving them over to their sin. He's allowing them to pursue their folly, and as a result to wreak havoc and damage to one another. So he's sort of allowing them, but it's more of a concession than a promise. It's more of if you're going to be persistently following your own devices and your own counsel rather than my counsel, I'll let you do it, but it's not going to succeed. It's not going to prosper because you're doing this through your own ingenuity, your own strength, your own wisdom, and so in the end, it's going to be a failure and a setback. So I don't know if that's, as I said, the best answer. That's kind of how I've read that end of the book. And as you're saying, it's a difficult one because it seems like he's telling them to do something that ends up being destructive. But I sort of see it as him giving them over to their foolishness. All right. Anything else on the book of Judges that comes to mind?
Can you make some comment on Samson? it just surprises me. He was a one-man wrecking crew, but he just couldn't get his head out of women, and as a result of that, the Danite land could not be taken. And if you fast forward ahead, that would have been the area where they floated the timbers down from the King of Tyre to float them upriver for the temple. And it just seems like that's, I mean, I guess it's not a question. It's just what a tragic loss. And it just seems like Samson just couldn't get his head out of the flesh. Do you have any comments on Samson?
Yeah, Samson's a tragic figure. He's a leader that I'm not sure what to make of. I think part of the understanding that I have of his life in general is, he's a Nazarite, and so every sin predicament he gets into is another lapse in the elements of the Nazarite vow. So it's not to touch a carcass, it's not to shave your head, it's not to drink wine. So each episode is a further step in desecrating the vow, and then the final one being his head is shaved, and then he's essentially a pitiful figure who's sort of the anti-type of what a leader should be. He's blind and impotent, and yet God empowers him one last time to take down the Philistines. Part of my questions about Dan, and this relates to a larger issue that I don't know, it's a little more controversial, so I'll just say this as my opinion, just going out on a limb a little bit. But if you look at the prophecy of Dan and Jacob's blessing in Genesis 49, it's really interesting because he's described there as a viper who strikes the heel of the rider. And it seems that that's a reference back to Genesis 3:15, that the serpent would strike the heel of, the messianic figure to come, the seed of the woman. So I've always had this wonder about what exactly that means about the tribe of Dan. Are they sort of a representation of the Antichrist kind of a thing? Well, that's what the church fathers actually held to, because the tribe of Dan is not mentioned in the book of Revelation as one of the 144,000. And so the church fathers held that that's because the Antichrist comes from his tribe. And I do hold that the Antichrist is Jewish, which not all interpreters of my ilk hold to that. The Dallas guys tend to see him as a Gentile. But I wrote a paper on this, a journal article a few years ago called Zechariah 11 and the Eschatological Shepherds, where I make a case for him being Jewish. So, that's just, I'm speculating now, kind of shooting from the hip, but it is interesting that Samson, in a way, is almost like an anti-Christ figure. And I don't mean that in the sense that he's an unbeliever, because clearly he's in Hebrews 11. But at the same time, he seems to exhibit all the negative qualities of what you would expect in the messianic figure. So, yeah, he's a tragic figure for sure. And yeah.
Interesting. Anyway. Thank you.
Right. Are we good on that then? There's more we could say, of course, but time does not permit us to tell of everything. So we'll have to leave it there, I guess. All right, so let's transition to the Dorsey book. I am at my home office, and I have Dorsey on my shelf at my seminary office. So unfortunately, I don't have it in front of me tonight. So I'm just going to go from memory and what you all thought about the book. So let's just conclude in our last few minutes here talking about this book regarding literary structure and chiastic devices. As I recall from Dorsey, he kind of finds chiasms everywhere in terms of the literary structure as it unfolds. And I do see a lot of chiasms, so I'm not discounting that. Sometimes I wonder if it can't be overdone in some cases. But do you all have any thoughts on your work on Dorsey and interacting with that material. Did you find it persuasive? Would you critique it in terms of what he's suggesting? Any thoughts anybody wants to share?
Well, I guess I don't know if I have enough information to critique him, but it seemed like he could find a set of seven in every corner of the Old Testament. And
Yeah.
so I don't know if he was stretching it a smidge or if there literally are that many sevens. I know seven is very prominent, especially in the book of Revelation. But anyway, that was one thought that I had. But I really enjoyed, his conclusions where if the chiasm came to the center, then that was the emphasis. If it chiasm or if it came at the end of the symmetry, then that was the climax and the most important thing. So it was very helpful.
Okay, good. Ron, you had your hand up. Did you want to share?
Yeah, I was going to say I really appreciated his focus on the literary structure and the importance of that. I think that's really neat. He really emphasized also the sophistication of some of the writing of the scriptures, and I think that's something that gets lost a little bit, I think, now. And so I'm glad to see him focus on that. He admitted several times in the book. There's a couple times where he says, "I think this is it." He basically says his chiasms. He's stretching it. He admits that he's like just finding places to add chiasms a couple of times, where he says this is kind of pushing the boundaries of a reasonable interpretation, or explanation of the literary structure. But I felt like, yeah, I think because of that, sometimes it's almost like he's making the chiasm fit his own interpretive opinions about the passage. That's what seemed to me to be going on a couple times, where he was just making the passage fit what he thought it meant, which means like the chiasm seemed to me to be really contrived.
Yeah.
In that sense.
Yeah, that's potentially one of my criticisms of his work as well. Not that chiasms aren't there, but that to see them nearly everywhere and in some cases seemingly imposed on the text. Kelso, did you have a hand up?
Yeah, I entirely agree with my brothers here with you. It's exactly this. Some of his matchings are very interesting for sure, but he wants to see every book in 7 parts. And well, with this presupposition, I think it doesn't fit. Sometimes it's kind of forcing.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Michael?
Yeah. Also, one of the strengths I realized was his emphasis on repentance and restoration as a central theme in the prophetic books was striking.
Yeah, I think, yeah, that is important. Probably the prophetic book I know the best is Zechariah. And Zechariah begins that way, where he essentially has a sermon in the first 6 verses, turn back to God. And this clear call to repentance, which is theologically often sourced in the credo of Exodus 34, 6 and 7, that God is a compassionate God, slow to anger, and so they're to return to God because he'll show them mercy. That's a good point. All right. So anyone else want to share?
I thought, in terms of being persuaded, I thought it was very interesting the way he would use this chiastic structure and show some of the same verbiage in A or B was repeated in B prime and A prime, almost lifted and copied. And I thought that was strong for his case when those cases were made, but obviously the limitations has already been mentioned. But in terms of a persuasive argument of his, I thought that was fairly strong.
Yeah, when I'm looking for a chiasm, one of the major things I'm looking for is repeated terms, because to me that's the strongest element that shows there is intentional framing. And then typically seeing there to be a clear center pivot, because I would call, chiasms are pivoting structures. And so seeing that centerpiece. More recently, for instance, I was reading a monograph that came out a few years ago on the Torah, and there's an article in there about chiasms in the book of Exodus. And I found that persuasive and they argue that Exodus is a series of chiasms because the literary structure of Exodus, it's a little more difficult to decipher. Genesis is pretty clear with the Toledo headings. When you get to Exodus, is it geographical? Is it, to Sinai, away from Sinai? What exactly is going on? So they argue that it's a series of chiasms that sort of moves from Yahweh's call of Moses to self-disclosure to presence. And so he's moving from calling to self-disclosure to redemption to presence. And it does seem to make sense. So there is warrant for seeing chiasms, and I'm not fundamentally against that. But sort of forcing the number 7 to be part of that, I do find a little suspicious. And then seeing it almost everywhere, and in some cases contrived. One thing I look for when I think a chiasm might be contrived is if one member is like 20 verses and then the next member is 2 verses. And I often, that's to me a sign that this might be an interpreter kind of wanting to find something that's not clearly actually there. Because sometimes, writers use a bifid structure, which is slightly different. Like the book of Jonah is a bifid structure where there's A, B, C, A prime, B prime, C prime. So it's more of a staircase that doesn't pivot in the middle, but just replicates itself in the second half. So we can see examples of that as well. So, all right. Go ahead.
Obviously, we reviewed this for the Torah on our last cycle, and so we had to write papers on that too. And so it was a little bit redundant in the assignment because some of the things that we observed, we'd hate to have to repeat all that,
Right.
in this paper. So I found that it was hard to, not say the same thing over again.
Gotcha.
But one of the things that I thought was interesting is he took in the last cycle Genesis through Joshua as a unit, right? Wasn't it Joshua, I think? And I couldn't find anywhere else that was ever done, but he made some arguments to that case, but I couldn't find it in any of the Hebrew things. So that's one where I'd say, wow, that seems like you're really trying to make it work.
Right. Yeah. Interesting. I mean, Gerhard von Rad argued for a hexateuch, seeing it as 6 books, but not many people followed that proposal. Yeah. Anyway,
I think
interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, gentlemen, thank you for hanging with me tonight and motor mouth as I'm going over all these concepts from the books, but it was good to get to know you a little bit. I look forward to the next couple of weeks doing our deep dive. If you have questions, you can email me. You can email me at my Detroit address. It's my first initial K Dunham at DBTS, and I'll see it more quickly. I usually do check Calvary every day or so, maybe every couple of days. I'll try to be more regular in checking that. But if you have questions, let me know. Otherwise, next time will be Samuel and Kings, I think. So we're going to keep pressing through and looking forward to that.
What was
All right.
What was that email?
It's kdunham@dbts.edu. kdunham@dbts.edu.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. Well, have a good rest of your evening. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Take care.
Everybody.
Yeah.
Good night.
Hey, guys.
Hello.
All right. See you later. Hey, Michael, is it early in the morning for you right now? Are you staying awake or do you take a nap?
Stay awake.
Okay. Yeah. Push through. All right. God bless you all.
God bless.
Take care.
Bye. Bye, Paul.
Bye. Glad you're back, Paul. Hello, Michael.
Paul will come back. Thank you.
You're muted, Paul.
Yeah, say thank you very much. Yeah, I'm glad to be back.
Yes, I was super excited to see your name on the list.
Yes.
All right. So how have you both been?
Okay, I mean,
I've been
fighting
well.
on.
How about Michael?
Fighting on.
Yeah, okay.
Did the election turn out the way you had hoped?
Probably the way we assumed.
The way you assumed? Yep.
I mean, 45 years down the road, it's the same thing. So,
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
yeah.
How are all the orphan kids?
Oh, they are doing okay. Now in vacation until 10th of February.
Oh, okay. That's in February.
Yeah.
That's my wedding anniversary.
Oh,
Okay.
really? Wow. We find out making it special.
Definitely make it special. That's right. That's right. Yeah. So did you guys have a good New Year? Did you do anything? New Year's Eve or anything like that?
Probably on 31st, normally we have prayer vigil.
You have what?
Prayer vigil.
Oh, prayer vigil. Yes.
Yes. Until 4, probably, and then people break off.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah.
And my wife and I spent the day together. Just we did a little day trip in a little Missouri town about an hour and a half away from here. We went up there and spent the day there and then came back.
Oh.
Did you go to Branson?
No, we went to Jamestown,
Oh, Jamestown. Okay.
an Amish community.
Oh, there we go. So did you have to ride the buggy?
No, we drove.
Okay, see.
Yeah,
Oh.
we
No,
we
no, I
definitely
mean
drove.
when you reached there, did you have to ride the buggy?
Oh no, we didn't do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
No, but we saw them. We saw them.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. My first I spent it at home. Yes, with my family like that.
Yep. Well, it's definitely good to see you guys back in class. It's been
Oh, thank you.
too long.
Yeah, good to see you too.
Thank you.
My brothers.
Yes.
Well, love you guys, and I guess we'll see you next week.
Okay, see you next week.
Happy
All right.
to
Take
see
care.
you there.
Bye now. Take care.
Bye, guys.
Take care.